Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to welcome you to the BKNIX Peering Forum 2016. My name is Panita Pongpaiboon. I will be your host during this morning sessions. This is the first time Peering Forum is organized by local Thai organizations, which are the Thai Network Information Center Foundation, or THNIC, and the BKNIX Company Limited, with support from many local and international organizations. This event is also in conjunction with APNIC Regional Meeting. And in this two-day forum, you will find many interesting topics, including peering dynamics in Southeast Asia and the fiber optics interconnection around the globe. And for tomorrow, there will be sessions on IXP benefits to the big data and cloud services, routing registry functions automation with RPKI and RPLS, policies related to the telecommunication transactions in Thailand, and how to peer at the I-axis. These sessions are also webcasting on BKNIX website, which is the worldwideweb.bknix.co.th. And of course, during this event, you may have a chance to meet your peers from various organizations and various countries. You may also use the meeting booking system at the website peeringforum.bknix.co.th to help coordinate all your appointments. For your convenience, there will be tables allocated for your business meetings at the function room number 2 in today's afternoon, as well as tomorrow afternoon. Also, for those of you who may need internet access, the Wi-Fi password is BKNIX 2016 or BKNIX 2016. And for the last announcements, please don't forget today's evening, we will have a peer and cocktail at the V Bar, second floor of the building at the front, for the participant who hold an invitation card or register for the reception only. And now, I think it's the right moment for the opening of the BKNIX Peering Forum 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Kotom Ariya. He's the chairman of Thai Network Information Center Foundation, for welcome speech and the opening remarks.
Good morning. Welcome, honorable speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of THNIC, the organizer, the full name is Thai Network Information Center Foundation, and also with the BKNIX company, a kind of company that the foundation has created last year around the month of February. In a way, we are celebrating a one-year-old company working on the internet exchange. So warm welcome to all of you, to our speakers, our guests of honor, our sponsors. I think we should thank our sponsors rather than welcome them fully. And welcome international and local participants to this BKNIX Peering Forum 2016. So it may be hopeful that after 2016 there may be other peering forum as well. Today we have around 100 participants, and they are from ISPs, CDN providers, IDC providers, carriers, IXPs, and a number of experts in the internet industry from Thailand, as well as from Australia, United States, Japan, and South Korea, Hong Kong, India, Pakistan. Also, I would like to mention that we have invited, and I think we have among us here, delegates from all the ASEAN countries. See. So besides Thailand, the other 9 countries from ASEAN, namely Singapore, Malaysia, Brunei, Philippines, Indonesia, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Vietnam, are participating. This is to demonstrate in a way that our endeavor is a regional one. We are trying to organize what we call a first neutral internet exchange in Thailand and in this region or in this sub-region. This is our intent or our goal. The main philosophy of BKNIX is to reduce complication of the local internet infrastructure, latency time in local internet exchange, as well as the internet service cost. At present, BKNIX has 9 members peering at its infrastructure and 2 common content providers be connected. As I mentioned earlier, we would like to celebrate today our first year anniversary. In fact, it should be in February, but anyhow, close enough. And we find it is appropriate to get together to share and to update relevant emerging technologies and issues. We'd like also to discuss policy matter and to find out how the world and our region is moving forward in interconnection. So we discuss technologies and also direction. I trust that all of you will acquire new knowledge or will share knowledge, skill, and useful information so that the 2-day forum we are going to undertake will be successful. This will be followed by 4-day BJP workshop organized by Interlab at the Asian Institute of Technology, or AIT, and Network Startup Resource Center, or NSRC. In addition, I'm very delighted that this peering forum is organized in conjunction with APNIC Regional Meeting that would make both events even more powerful and fruitful by that synergy. Lastly, I would like to extend special thanks to all of the partners who, as being partners, has made this forum a reality. Thank you, Asia Pacific Network Information Center, or APNIC, Office of the National Broadcasting and Telecommunication Commission, or NBTC, Internet Society, Facebook, TCC Technology, Nokia Thailand, Ekamai Technologies, iNet, NetNot, I hope I pronounce it correctly, NetNot, NSRC, CS Logs Info, and Uninet. So thank you for the sponsorship. I wish all the delegates and participants a worthwhile and fruitful meeting, as well as a wonderful stay in our kingdom. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kothom, for the insightful speech. BKNIX Peering Forum 2016 is now officially started. And the next speaker, he is a specialist on Internet infrastructure, IP technologies, and address distribution policies. He has been recognized as one of the Internet Hall of Fame inductees in Global Connectors 2012. Currently, he is a chief scientist at the Asia Pacific Network Information Center, or APNIC. Mr. Jeff Hudson is going to give a talk remotely on scaling BGP. So if you're ready, the session is yours.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me? Good. Tell me when you want me to start. Thank you very much, and hello everyone. Sorry I can't make it to Bangkok in person, but George Markelson and other APNIC folk are there, and I'm sure between us all we can answer whatever questions you might have. I'm going to talk today very quickly about the Internet's routing system. The Internet grows in many dimensions, and one of the most obvious ones where it grows is actually the routing system itself. Because every single time you run an address into the Internet, you know, your address, my address, whatever, often what happens is another prefix gets announced globally. And so when we look at the routing system, next slide please, we actually got a lens that gives us the entire Internet in one hit. And it's one of the few places where you can actually see all of the Internet at once. Next slide. The problem, of course, is that whenever we try and assemble this, we get some defects in the lens. It's not quite right. Next slide. And part of the problem is that it's difficult to get outside the system. It's like going outside this hotel that you're in and looking at the streets. Now, you'll see a street probably running north-south and another one running east-west, but you won't see all the other details, because everybody sees a different set of local streets. And so what we actually found when we look at the routing system is there's no single view of the routing system. Everyone has a subtly different view. Even so, most of us see much the same things. So while everyone's view is different, it's different from a common sort of set. And so the set that I'm going to be looking at is the routing set that we see in APNIC coming out of OS 131072. Now this is a pretty ordinary network. It doesn't carry anyone's routes. It's just a stub autonomous system. It's at the edge of the Internet, and it has one eBGP view. It's probably a lot like your network. And so what I'm seeing here is probably a lot like what you will see inside your routers. So let's see what it tells us. Next slide. One of the fascinating things about this is if you take a long enough view, and this is a view that spans almost 30 years, a whole set of things become evident. The very slow initial growth of the Internet through the academic and research networks. The introduction of classless inter-domain routing in 1994 when we thought things were going to melt. We can even see the great Internet boom and bust of the 2000-2001 and the rise of broadband. There's a very slight glitch around 2009 with the global financial crisis. But I suppose what's interesting is that even though we ran out of addresses in 2011, you can't see that. Next slide. For some reason, we've been able to sort of grow the Internet over the last 4 years, even though we had no addresses. Next slide. And so when we look at 2015 in detail, next slide, what we actually see is that this has grown by approximately 50,000 entries through the year, consistently throughout the year, every day a few more routes. And so the growth rate per day is much the same as the average growth rate per year. And if we go back another 5 years, next slide, what you actually see is over a longer term view from 2010, that blue line, very, very consistent. Also what's consistent, and unbelievably so, is the number of new networks that enter the internet each year. Almost mechanically, it grows by 3,100 new autonomous system numbers every year. And that's been a constant since January 2012. Nothing seems to be changing. Next slide. The other thing I suppose too is the underlying issues of the internet are also growing at a relatively constant rate. The only way that you can do selective traffic engineering on the internet successfully, amongst the many techniques, if you really want to pin it down, you end up advertising more specific routes of an aggregate. And since forever, at least 1994, more specifics take up 1/2 of the V4 routing table. It was true back then, it's true today. And more likely it's going to be true tomorrow. More specifics take up 1/2 of the routing table because traffic engineering is a requirement. About the only place where we can see that there's been some concession to the address shortage issue in V4 is the average size of a routing advertisement. So that bottom right there shows that back in 2010, we were advertising around about a /19 on average. And now, as we move into through 2016, that's now looking like around about a /20. So the average address size is now getting smaller because there aren't as much addresses. Next slide. And that's pretty clear in this next indicator. Up until 2011, we were fueling the internet with new addresses. Across 2010, the advertised network grew from 130/8s to 140/8s, 10/8s inside that year. But of course in 2011, APNIC ran out early in the year, and then in 2012, the WAP NCC in Europe ran out. In 2014, LACNIC ran out, and late last year, ARM ran out. And as each of them hit the wall, the number of new addresses into the routing system declined. So what we see now is a much more modest growth of the routing system. But interestingly, on the bottom right, the size of the internet, if you measure its diameter, and those step functions are me, not the internet, so just look at that last little bit, it's actually staying constant, or perhaps even getting denser. Nobody likes to be a customer, and I suppose that's the issue around peering. Everybody likes to connect as close as they can to the core of the network. And what we see is that the average diameter of the internet is a little over 4 networks, no matter where you are, because everybody likes to connect in closely. And we'll see some of those implications a bit further on. Next slide. So, even though there aren't addresses, it's still business as usual. The number of entries in your router is probably around 600,000 if you're not carrying default, and it's growing at about 50,000 entries a year, and that's been pretty constant for some years. Next slide. So the kind of question is, of course, how do you fuel growth when you haven't got any more addresses? Because we used to do this by handing out more addresses, but now what we're seeing is addresses are moving between folk. They're being bought and sold. Sometimes they're being bought and sold with our knowledge, sometimes without our knowledge. Next slide. So we can look at that by looking at the age of the new addresses at the end of each year. So this is a plot of the age of all those addresses that were announced for the first time in 2010. And 80% of all those new addresses that appeared in 2010 were allocated by the registry system in 2010. Next slide. As we started to run out of addresses, folks started mining our history and doing transfers. And the blue line, the solid blue line, tells us something quite radically different about 2015. Only 1/5 of those addresses that were announced in 2015 were allocated or assigned within the previous 12 months. So rather than 80%, we're down to 20. And interestingly, 1/3 of all those new addresses are old, very old legacy, when were first announced more than 20 years ago. So that these days, we're fueling a lot of the V4 growth by effectively mining our history. Next slide. So the summary is, we've run out of addresses, but we're getting growth still, and a lot of that growth is coming from transfers. It's also coming from micro allocations happening in RIPE and APNIC, and certainly a heightened amount of address recovery. Next slide. Interestingly, this is a plot of the unadvertised versus advertised addresses. The red line is the quantity of addresses that aren't seen in the routing system, but were handed out by the registry. By the time we got to exhaustion in 2011, 50/8s, 1/5 of the entire address space, 50/8s, weren't seen in the routing system. And interestingly, we haven't really mined an awful lot of that space. You'll see a small amount of movement at the right-hand side of that red line. But on the whole, addresses aren't really being turned out yet. There's a lot more to go. Let's blow up that last year. Next slide. And this is the plot of the unadvertised addresses for about 12 months. Next slide. Now, I don't know what people are doing, but up until the start of November, this is entirely expected. Addresses were being moved out of the unadvertised pool and being advertised. So we saw that pool decline in size. But oddly enough, in November and December, the pool grew again. Addresses were taken out of the routing system and not advertised. That is entirely a surprise. Next slide. So now what we can do is sort of put it all back together again and find this picture that the blue, the advertised line, rose constantly throughout the year. Part of that is due to assignments from regional internet registries, approximately 4/8, that's the green line. But the other part of that growth is actually due to the movement of the unadvertised pool, which is that low red line. So if you need a lot of addresses, you're not going to get them from the registries these days. You're going to have to get them from the market, and more than likely, when you try and go there, you're going to be getting them from the pool of unadvertised addresses that will need to be recovered. And we can see the extent of that activity, next slide, that the amount of addresses coming out of our old unadvertised pool is about the same quantity as the addresses coming out of the registry system these days. Until that blip in November, we were looking at recovering approximately 4/8 from our history and also allocating 4/8 from the residual unallocated pools. So we're likely to see that trend continue. Next slide. So approximately 4/8 were assigned. Most of them came from Arran. That's over. Arran have no addresses left. And the equivalent of 1/8 was assigned by APNIC. They still have addresses left. 3/8s were recovered. Two of them, 2/8s or the equivalent, went back into the unadvertised pool by the end of the year. So that's the summary of V4. What about V6? Let's look at V6. Next slide. V6 doesn't have quite the history, and you can certainly see only really two events. The first event was V4 exhaustion, and realistically it didn't make an awfully big impact on the growth curves of V6. World IPv6 Day is probably more obvious insofar as you can see a blip before it as people accelerated their plans, but then straight after there was actually very little activity because there was very little else in the pipe for another 6 months. The more sort of rapid growth has actually been in the last 2 years, where, as you see, exponential growth is looking interesting. And we're now almost up to 30,000 routes. Next page. Next slide. But interestingly, that's not a curved line for the year. But the growth rates, particularly in 2015 for V6, are actually constant, not exponential. And that means that the predictions for when will V6 be everywhere tend to move out a long way because constant growth is not rapid growth. Next slide. We're growing at about 6,000 prefixes per year compared to V4 growing at about 50,000. So V6, in terms of just the number of prefixes, is growing at about 1/10 of the rate. I suppose better news is that the autonomous system numbers, 3,100 a year in V4, 1,600 a year in V6. Again though, relatively constant, which is somewhat strange and certainly unanticipated. Next slide. The amount of more specifics is now getting close to V4. In some ways this was unanticipated. We always thought more specifics was routing noise and that was avoidable. What actually occurs is that more specifics are traffic engineering and everyone does it. More specifics are a third of the table and the average size of routing is getting smaller for much the same reason. Next slide. The advertised address span isn't curtailed. We have lots of V6 addresses. They're growing at a linear rate. And the shape of the internet is now much the same as V4, relatively constant. It's 4 ASs wide. That's what most folks see. Next slide. So we're growing at a steady rate in V6. It's about between 1/2 and 1/7 of the equivalent rate in V4, but you know, it is growing. Next slide. So what can we expect? Next slide. Well, obviously it's very difficult with V4 because the uncertainty over address exhaustion makes a lot of these predictions extremely uncertain. And the other thing is, of course, the V6 take-up is very spotty. It happens here, it happens there, but not everywhere. So a lot of these projections have a fair amount of guesswork. Next slide. But what we can do is do some maths on this, and the first one is you take the first order differential. Next slide. You then place some bounding limits on it. Next slide. You then look at the relative growth rate. Next slide. And what appears to be going on is that we're adding about 120 routes a day. Next slide. And that then can actually fuel these predictions that if we keep on recovering addresses at much the same rate, and we keep on making the average routing advertisement smaller and smaller, within about 5 years we'll get up to a little over 750,000 V4 routes. So if you're looking at how much fib size you need in your routers, you're going to need at least 1 million V4 entries. Next slide. But you can't just run the network on V4, you've got to look at V6. So a similar analysis, next slide, of trying to take the first order differential, and the good news is I suppose it is rising. Next slide. Doing the relative growth rates, interestingly in percentage terms, it's not rising, it's slowing down, which is effectively the message around constant growth. Next slide. And what you see is the early adopters have adopted, the trailing edge is taking some time. Next. And so we have two levels here. One is exponential growth kicks in. And over 5 years, that'll be 127,000 entries. Or it reverts to a constant linear model, 50,000 entries. But when you think about your router, multiply those numbers by 4. Because, of course, each prefix is 4 times the size. So that's the equivalent of approximately 600,000 entries comparable to V4, 32-bit slots, or 200,000 V4 slots if you take the linear model. How big do you need your router? Somewhere between 1.2 and 1.5 million 32-bit entries. So you probably need to exercise some care and caution when you buy your next model of router. Next slide. Now, nothing says panic. Even if Moore's law is dying out, as the economist seems to predict, these growth rates are not unduly large. We're probably going to live within the current sort of noble technical paradigms of BGP for some time. Nothing's melting in terms of the table. Next. But what about the performance? How good is BGP in routing? Next slide. Oddly enough, even though the table grows, the amount of noise in BGP, next slide, seems to have a very different pattern. It's relatively stable. Next slide. And what that gives you is that on the whole, BGP converges in 50 seconds and has done for more than 10 years. If there's a miracle in today's network, this slide shows you that miracle. In a distance vector protocol, this is theoretically impossible, but we did it. We don't know why, but we did it. Aren't we amazing? Next slide. So again, nothing for concern here, or perhaps the only good concern is this is unbelievably good. Our suspicion is that because we're keeping the network tight, because no one likes to be a customer and content connectivity is actually quite dense, that actually means the protocol performs much better than we thought. Next slide. For V6, however, there is a very interesting bit that happened late in the year. It is possible to drive this into a completely different pattern. And you notice the last few months of 2016, we were seeing 120,000 V6 updates a day. That's a lot. Next slide. And the result is that the convergence performance was far, far worse. Next slide. So the number of updated prefixes per day increases. Next slide. And the issue is, it doesn't converge easily. The updates per event start to blow out. Next slide. So generally in V6 it's less stable, and we're not sure why. But what we can do is point out where the problem might be. Next slide. Because what's going on is that a very small number of networks do an awful lot of routing noise. Next slide. And we know who you are. So if you're listed here, you're part of the problem, and maybe you shouldn't be. And the only people I will accept as being a legitimate vote about instability is entry number 9, which is the RIPE NCC, who deliberately beacon off, on, all the time. But everyone else shouldn't be there. Next slide. So that's kind of it. The routing system continues to scale, but on the whole, it scales because almost everybody is relatively quiet. But if you look at the BGP instability reports that I put out, you'll actually find that even in Thailand, there are a couple of folk who are still remarkably noisy, particularly in V4. So if anyone is there from OS 1344438, which is Aurora and Eiffel Public Company, 1344438, whatever you're doing in BGP, stop. And the other one that's kind of problematical coming from Thailand is OS 131090, which we've registered to CAT Telecom, CAT, which is, I suspect, one of the larger providers. Again, in V4, it's a noisy network. It should not be doing that amount of updates. And in particular, if you're living behind 110.170.17/24 or 61.7.155, life's not worth living. You're so noisy in BGP, I really can't see how any service actually happens. So the network works because we all tend to be conservative. And as long as you're able to exercise that degree of conservatism and very carefully look at the amount of noise that you produce in routing, and there are reports like the BGP Instability Report, which I'm sure George Michelson can give you the URL for, that can show you if you and your network is part of the problem or part of the solution. Because as far as I can see, if we all manage to keep this noise down, BGP has at least another decade or maybe two of life. And that's a very, very good thing to observe, because changing protocols is one thing. Changing our routing system, oddly enough I suspect, will be a lot harder. There's no plan B for BGP. This is it, and we're stuck with it. It better work. So hopefully that's been of interest. I've used up my time. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to try and take them. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, and I hope you have a very good field for the rest of the program. Thanks indeed.
He's part of the team that drafted the National Digital Economy Strategy with the Ministry of Information and Communication Technology. Digital infrastructure to support digital economy in Thailand. So may I invite Dr. Chalernpol.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to have a talk today, and I met many old friends from different countries. I have been asked to give a talk about how the Thailand will improve the network or digital infrastructure in terms of the digital economy policy. So the title of my talk is Enhancing Digital Infrastructure to Support Digital Economy in Thailand. This is the outline of my talks. So I will first give brief country profiles and then some telecom indicators, since many of you are from other countries, so you know more about Thailand. And then I will talk a little bit about the national digital economy plans, and then I will talk how the government will enhance the network infrastructure to support the policy. Oops, sorry. Okay, this is the Thailand profiles. Right now, so we have about 65.7 million in terms of the populations, and you can see that the number of females is more than males. Okay, a little bit, not much difference. And in terms of the households, we have about 24.7 million households. And in terms of the GDP per capita, we have about 5,560 USD. Okay. Why I give this number to you? Because when I try to relate it about our telecom market to this figure, you see that how Thailand performs. And in terms of the fixed broadband subscribers, right now there are about 6.2 million subscribers in terms of fixed broadband subscribers. Okay, for example, by using ADSL. Okay, and in terms of the mobile subscribers, there's totally 84.7 million registered subscribers. Okay, it used to be more than 100 million. That means one person have more than one mobile phones numbers. Okay, and the estimated internet users at the end of 2015 is about 38 million. Okay. Now let's look at more details about the figure that I showed you. Okay, this is the fixed broadband internet report, you can see that the number of broadband internet subscribers have been growing very fast since 2003, 2004. However, most of the subscribers are located in metropolitan areas. You can see from here, okay? And this is the proportion of the fixed broadband penetrations in terms of compared to the number of households that I mentioned, about 24 million. The percentage is about 30%, okay? But when we compare to the populations, okay, this is a green line, okay? You can see that here, this is the population is still less than 10%, okay? And in terms of the price, okay, we can see that the price per kilobit per second decreased dramatically in recent years. This is because the technologies changed. For example, in the past, we used to have modem for low speed ADSL. Okay, we pay for 1,000 baht in Thailand, but now we can have more than 10 megabit per second, but we pay less. We pay only 600 or 700 baht. So the price per kilobit per second drop fastly here. Okay. Then, in terms of the mobile market, okay, as you can see that I mentioned the total subscribers about 84 million. However, most of the subscribers are prepaid. Okay, prepaid, that means you have to pay first and then you use according to amount of money that you have in your account. Okay. What about the postpaid? Okay, which is the orange. This is the orange bar. Okay, compared to the prepaid subscribers, it's huge difference. Okay. Then the penetrations you can see from this graph. Okay, right now the penetration is still more than 100% because one person have more than one phone numbers. Okay, and in terms of the market, there are three main operators. On this figure, you can see that the first operators have about 40, probably around 40% of the market, which is belong to the AIS, and then the second one is DTAC, then True. DTAC and True are very close, and then the minority one is about less than 1%, I guess, which is from CAT and TOT. Okay. Okay, and in terms of the internet usage, okay, as you can see, the number of internet users have been growing, and I just mentioned that we have about 38 million at the end of 2015. And in terms of the international bandwidth, okay, this is the amount of international bandwidth that we have been collecting since 2006. Now, I can show you later, the figure that we have is about 2.4 terabit per second. And this is the amount of bandwidth exchange within Thailand, basically to the local exchange point. Okay. Okay. Also, we update the internet map monthly. Okay. The figure that I just mentioned, the latest bandwidth that we have in terms of international bandwidth is about I could not see, about 2.3 or 2.4 terabit per second. Okay, and this figure shows you how the internet service providers and the gateway connect to other service providers in different parts of the world in other countries. Okay. And this is the internet map for the domestic exchange. Okay. And also you can see that the figure is about 3.5 terabit per second in terms of the bandwidth, total bandwidth that have been connecting to the domestic exchange point. Okay. Now look at this. Okay. Based on the internet map that we have been collecting in the past years, compares the total internet bandwidth at the end of 2014 with at the end of 2015. The total bandwidth, international bandwidth at December 2014 is about 1.2 terabit per second. Okay, and at the end of 2015 is about 2.3 terabit per second. 80% increase in 1 year. Okay, and if we look at the detail, okay, all those bandwidths, where did they go? Okay, they go to Singapore, number 1. Okay, which is about 48% at the end of 2015. Okay, second is go to Malaysia, about 28%. Okay, number 3 go to US. Oh, sorry, go to Hong Kong, 10%, and then number 4 to the US. Okay, and others go to Europe and other countries. Okay, so 80% increase within 1 year. Okay, and we are now at 2.2. Actually, latest one is a 2.3 terabit per second. Okay, this is the forecast of the international bandwidth. Okay, right now we are at this point, 2016. Okay, which is about 2.3 terabit per second, and it's really likely that at the end of this year, it will go up or beyond 2.5 terabit per second. Okay, I don't know. Maybe next year, if the growth rate still the same, 80%, that means we may be having about more than 4 terabit per second at the end of next year. Okay. Now, this is forecast 1. Okay. This is the figure show you the international traffic. Where did it go? Okay. Number 1, Google. Okay. Number 2, Facebook. You're here. Okay. Number 3, Microsoft. Okay. And actually, if we look at the location of these big brothers, okay, they are located in Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia. That's why most of the bandwidth and traffic go to those locations. Okay, and we hope that our good partner, good friends, Facebook, Google, they will set up their data center in Thailand so that our user in Thailand will enjoy those services. Okay. Later on, I will explain more about the government's policy to enhance the digital infrastructure to support this. Okay. Okay. Now, let's look at the national policy and plans in Thailand. Okay, right now we are having ICT policy framework 2020. This one, and recently we have national digital economy plans, which have been approved by the cabinet on the 5th of April. Okay, and we'll talk more about this. And on the same day, the digital government plans also approved by the cabinet. Okay, And before that, we have ICT master plans, we have national broadband policy. And the third ICT master plan has been replaced by the national digital economy plans. So there's no longer the third ICT master plan. Okay. This is the national digital economy plans. The vision is to transform towards digital Thailand. What is digital Thailand? You can see from here. Okay, it's defined as a transformed Thailand that maximize the use of the digital technologies. Okay, in all socio-economic activities in order to develop infrastructures, innovation, data, human capitals, and other digital resources. Okay, that will ultimately drive the countries. Okay. This one has been approved recently, as I mentioned. Okay. It's a bit slow. Okay. In the national digital economy plans, actually it's planned for 5 years. However, the Prime Minister asked the ministry to look for 20 years plan. So this is the landscape of the national digital economy plans. We are now just beginning. Okay. Here, we are starting here. So there will be a short period, about 1.5 years, okay, for driving the national digital economy. Why there are questions about why there's only 1.5 years, okay. When we are doing this, we have been asked to have the short periods of the plans so that hopefully we can have something happen before the current governments finish their term, okay, and have the new elections, okay. That's why we have a 1.5 years plan. And then we have 5-year plans, 10 years plan, and 20 years plan. In terms of the strategies, in the plans, there are 6 national strategies. And I will only focus on the first one, which is related to the digital infrastructures. Basically, the strategy number 1, we try to build the countrywide high-capacity digital infrastructures so that it will ensure that the infrastructure is accessible and also available and also affordable by all class of people. Okay. And in the second one is to boost the economy with digital technologies. The third strategy is to create a knowledge-driven digital societies. Then number 4 is to transform into digital government. Okay. Number 5, to develop the workforce for the digital era. Okay. Then the final one is to build the trust and the confidence in the use of the digital economy, digital technologies. Okay. Now, for the strategy number 1, to build high-capacity digital infrastructures, the goal is to have the high-capacity broadband that will be rolled out countrywide and cover all villages in Thailand. Okay. And then also the second goal is the broadband subscription fee will be priced under 2% of the GNP per capita. At the moment, the price is about 5%. Okay, so our plan is to drive the price down to below 2%. Okay. Then the next one is the mobile services will be provided in all villages. Okay, and also in all communities and tourist attractions. The next one is Thailand will become one of the internet connectivity hubs. This is what the internet exchange and also the internet gateways that you are discussing in this forum will play an important role to drive this goal. Okay. Then about the digital broadcasting. Okay. So what are the actions that we need to do in order to achieve those goals? Okay. We will roll out the nationwide broadband infrastructures, then drive towards the connectivity, ASEAN connectivity hub. Then we will develop infrastructure policy and then reform the state-owned enterprise. Okay. This is what we mean by digital infrastructure under the National Digital Economy Plan. Actually, it involves many parts of the digital infrastructure, not the fiber only, or not the submarine cables, but also satellites, towers for the telecom services, data centers, okay, and also radio frequencies. Many issues will be involved in this. Okay. You may wonder, with that ambitious goals, how can we move toward to that goals within a short period of time? Okay. So there's a priorities activities for the strategies. Okay. The first one is to deploy the broadband to all villages. Then to provide internet connectivity and free Wi-Fi at 10,000 locations, okay, which include the non-formal and informal schools, border patrol police schools, and digital community centers in all villages over the countries. Okay. Then for the international part, okay, the international bandwidth will be increased to meet the demands and the growing of the economies. And lastly, the Digital Thailand Infrastructure Funds may be set up to manage or to share the digital infrastructure in Thailand. Now, I will give you some status of the current activities. This is the existing network infrastructures. Actually, in Thailand, we have a lot of fiber optics nationwide. Only from CAT and TOT and some operators, there are more than 310,000 kilometers of the fiber optics. Okay. However, only 76% of the sub-districts have the fiber cable access. Okay. So, in terms of the mobile broadband coverage, as I mentioned before, right now it's about 97% of the population areas that have been covered by the mobile broadband service. Okay. For the rest of the areas will be covered by satellite service. Now, in terms of the international gateway networks, okay, you can see that Thailand has international gateway through terrestrial links, submarine cables, and satellites. However, for the global connectivities, we still rely on the submarine cables. Okay. And you can see from here, there are 3 companies that right now that have submarines, but only CAT Telecom is the only one that have the service at the moment. For TOT and another company, which is a Symphony, they are still under construction. Okay. And the cable system names are listed here. Okay. And I will show you, this is the cable system from Thailand to other countries or to other parts of the world, okay, and together with the name of the cable systems. Okay. So this is an existing one. Okay. In terms of the international connectivities, actually is for the IP services. Okay, this is the map from CAT, from CAT Telecom. they have international POPs in different regions. Okay, in the U.S. they have they connect to on the U.S. side they have connect to San Francisco. Okay, I think on that side. Okay, and also they have connection to Europe, basically to France, and then have POP there. And in the Southeast Asia regions, they have POP in Singapore, they have POP in Hong Kong, and also some other countries. Okay. When we try to analyze where those international POPs and internet routes go to, so basically, as I mentioned before, these are the major international POPs and internet routes from Thailand to those locations. Okay. Okay. Now, let me come back to the activities that right now are ongoing under the National Digital Economy Plans. As I mentioned, the priority activities include providing the public internet and free Wi-Fi. So this is the ongoing projects. There's about 10,000 locations nationwide that have been installed with Wi-Fi access for free, and also public internet connection to the non-formal education schools, to the digital community centers, and also borders patrol police schools. So this is ongoing, and the government invests about 1,000 million baht for these projects. Okay. The next one. Okay. To enhance the broadband internet access to all villages, there are about 25,000 villages in Thailand, and 53% are able to access high-speed internet. Okay. 40% are lack of fixed network infrastructure for broadband access, and 7% are in very remote areas where providing fixed broadband access are very difficult or very limited. Okay. So from these projects, we hope that at the end of the projects, about at least 93% of total villages will have the high-speed internet access to the fiber optics or the cables. Okay. And for the rest, they make use other type of media, for example, wireless or satellites. Okay. So in this project, basically, the government asks the existing operators to put the fiber optics from their center office, okay, along the ways to the village. Okay, so this is the way that they will connect the fiber optic from the central office go to the village, and this is a post that they will put the cable on, and then at the village, okay, hopefully this is the last mile access, that only a few hundred kilometers that they can connect to the equipment here. Okay, so in this project, I used this speaker from TOT just as an example to explain to you how the government will invest on these projects. Okay, and the amount of budget that the government invests on this project is about 15,000 million baht, and this project will be finished next year. Okay. Then another one is for the international part. Okay. The government invests about 5,000 million baht for Thailand to have enough network capacity, and hopefully we will have capacity that support our internet traffic growth as we can see from the beginnings. Okay? And in these projects, not only is the network capacity, and every major internet hubs in the world will be connected by at least 2 routes from the submarine cables from Thailand. Okay. So this is the projects that have been ongoing under the National Digital Economy Plan. Okay. So this is, I think, the end of my talks. Any questions? If not, and if you have questions, you can ask me later. And we will have the Digital Thailand event according to the Digital Economy Plans, which will be hosted at the end of this month, 26 to 28 May at Siligit Conference Center. You are all invited to attend, and you will learn more about the National Digital Economy Plans and how the country will move forward from that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chalampon. May I invite Dr. Kothom Ariya to present a token of appreciation to our speaker. On stage. Okay, before we proceed to the next session, which is the peering dynamics of Southeast Asia, allow me to interrupt the program a bit with a group photo. Okay, this is a fun session. Okay, so we want it to be a memorial for the first APNIC peering forum. So we'll have 3 rounds of photos. Okay, for the first round, may I invite Dr. Kothom, Professor Kanchana Sud, Dr. Chalampon Chansipinyo, Miss Jane Coffin, Mr. George Michelson, a delegate from Nokia, Thailand, Ms. Valipon Sayasit from TCC Technology, and Mr. Matt Jansen from Facebook, and Dr. Jesada Sivarak from NBTC. On stage, please. Oh, you too. And for the second round, please, the VIP on stage, please stay there. For the second round, the photographer will shoot from upstairs. So at the back of the room, may I invite everyone in the room to stand up? Stand up, please, and turn around. Okay? The photographer is there, so please turn around and say hi to the camera. Okay, look at him and say hi. Let's count 1, 2, 3, hi. Okay, third round. Not yet, not yet. We have the third round. Okay, thank you very much. And please be seated. For the third round, I would like to invite the delegates from all ASEAN countries to come on stage. Please, may I invite delegates from Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam, please come on stage. I think you know who you are. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next we will have the session Peering Dynamics in Southeast Asia, and there are 3 speakers in this session. The first speaker, Ms. Jane Coffin. She is responsible for the expansion of the Internet infrastructure strategy in emerging economies. She is now a Director of Development Strategy of Internet Society. So please join me in welcoming Ms. Jane Coffin on stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll be very quick so we can get to George, who will have a lot more interesting data for you from the region. Again, thank you, and a particular thanks to the team at BKNIX and the TH Foundation. The Internet Society is very proud to help sponsor this event. We do sponsor other events in the region and globally to help grow the Internet. Events like this are super important, so don't underestimate that this is one of the first important steps to growing that peering environment. You've already done that with the neutral internet exchange, and we're very supportive of that exchange, and growing other internet exchanges in the region with partners. You've got great experts here like Philip Smith from NSRC, George from APNIC, and the great workshop you're about to have the rest of this week. Thailand is at the crossroads, we think, of being a major peering hub, as are other countries in the region. We were just in Pakistan about 2 weeks ago with Philip, who did a technical training there. You're going to see this region become even more important. You not only have the economic wherewithal, the innovation, but the population size alone. And of course, you have what is the next generation of connected people, children. They're your next customer base, right? How many people in the room have children? Raise your hand. How many of them use iPads or touch your phones, go up to the TV and try to swipe the TV? Next step up with probably some of the technology in the region. But those children are becoming so wired at young ages, it's a little scary. But think about them, and as the speaker from NECTEC said, the country is looking at a digital plan, and ASEAN looks at digital regional plans. It's really exciting to see what's going on and how growth is happening in the region. One thing we would suggest, and we're trying to do some mapping right now in other regions, is more robust wrapping of the routes and prefixes in the region. We're seeing some coders that we're working with. We're putting servers into using the code from some technologists in Europe to look at Africa and the growth there. Your growth is 10 times that, of course, of Africa's. But it's important to also demonstrate to government officials and others in the region exactly what the growth rates mean. With the internet take up its economic development. Many of you hear probably some of the discussions from the UN on the Sustainable Development Goals. We all know that we've been trying to grow infrastructure, which grows development, which grows economic development. But the key thing is you can't stop working at the micro level, which many of you are micro-macro, right? Not to say this is important, but growing this IXP here in Thailand is critical. And the one we know in Pakistan that will come online soon, we hope in Islamabad. And of course there's Cambodia and Laos, Brunei, Malaysia has an IX. You're part of a huge ecosystem. As Jeff was pointing out, this isn't something that's by itself. And so it's really exciting to see what's going on and what's growing here. As we said, the IXP is a critical part of that puzzle and bringing more peers in. When you see the growth at the IXP here at BKNIX, they started out with 3 to 4 peers. Now they're at 9. That's really strong growth. Some IXPs don't get past the 4 to 5 peers in the first 2 to 3 years. So congratulations to the team, of course. Again, we have a local team here in the region. Rajnesh Singh is the chief of the bureau here. You'll see more people come in from our side from a technical perspective. I do not pretend to be an engineer or a technical expert. I know I can see the growth of infrastructure and the planning and know that this is key for the region. One thing we would like to say also is that we will look forward to seeing Thailand as one of the key ASEAN hubs. That's something that the NECTEC representative just spoke about. This is key. Suggestion for moving forward was mapping in the region. The one last thing I would note from a governmental side, if you can support the neutral exchange, this is critical. Encourage wireless community networking. That was one thing I didn't see in the plan that we just saw. We're supporting those local community wireless networks, whether it's VoIP, text, some internet connectivity, because some of those unconnected villages may not need or want right away the full internet connectivity. They may see it as important, but they may just need simple connectivity. Wireless community networking can help do that. Dr. Kanchan and her team are working on projects like that. We are as well. This is critical to start that value chain of internet connectivity, just those first connections. Liberalize submarine cable backhaul from the landing station. If you have a monopoly at the submarine cable, you're choking your connectivity and the ability of other carriers to bring traffic into the country and throughout the region. Equipment, this is one of my favorite topics. If customs duties and taxes are high on equipment, your internet is in jail. You can't get that equipment in, it's complicated. We sent a server recently to one country, it's in November, it's still there in customs. So if your internet is in jail, you can't grow it. So for government officials, think about yourselves also as an ecosystem of governmental organizations. It's not just one government agency acting alone. Same with the Ministry of Education. If you're trying to educate children, internet connectivity is critical. So that's the government working together. Again, I noted start mapping your routes, key thing, and routes in the region so you can watch the connectivity grow. And also note for investors, more investors of course, this region is about to explode as far as innovation, connectivity, and economic development. So we're looking forward to the 2017 Peering Forum. I just wanted to say thank you, and I'm finished.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Jane Coffin. So let's proceed to our second speaker. He is from APNIC Association. May I invite Mr. Katsuyasu Toyama? Please come on stage.
Sorry for my delay. I sit in the backside. Okay, so thank you very much for introduction. My name is Katsuyasu Toyama, and I'm from APNIC Association. And congratulations for the first neutral internet exchange in Thailand, and also this peering forum. 100 people, over 100 people are attending. So this is amazing, okay? Oh, so congratulations. Oh, just a moment. Okay, so today I would like to briefly talk about our APNIC associations and situation in internet exchange in Asia Pacific regions. Okay, next slide. Okay, so first, for myself, I introduce myself. My name is Katsuya Tsuema, and I work for JPNAP, and one of the Japanese internet exchange, and also act as a chairperson of an APNIX from the beginning. Okay, and also I'm doing kind of an IX Federation board member and Global Peering Forum board member. Okay, but some of you, I met you before when I worked as an entity communications the past 3 years as the head of internet services in the Asia Pacific region. Okay, so next slide. So what is an APNIX? As I mentioned, the APNIX is an association of the internet exchange providers in the Asia Pacific region. And this was established in 2010. And its objective is to share the information or experiences regarding the internet exchange from the technical or operational or business point of view. Okay, so please do it. And as you may know, these kind of IXP associations are there in the world. Mainly, these are the 5 associations. Maybe I do not know that in North America, but in Europe, the EuroIX, and in Africa, AFIX, and for the South America or Latin America region, for LACIX, it's an association of internet exchanges. Okay, please next. And also, we have an IX Federation. These are the board members of our IXP associations get together and coordinate with each other in for IXP associations. Okay, so this is IX Federation. Okay, so go back to the APNIX. This is the criteria of an APNIX members. The important point is a layer 2 and the neutral position and not enforce the purchase of the transit services, internet exchanges. So this is a very important point. And this kind of the neutral internet exchange promotes the peers between the ISPs. And it also promotes internet penetration of the internet, I believe. Okay, so we, as an APNIX association, we would like to promote this kind of neutral internet exchange in the Asia Pacific regions and collaborate with other IXP associations. We would like to expand or expand such kind of a neutral internet exchange all over the world. So the current APNIX members is listed here. The 22 IXPs are the members. And of course, the BKNIX is proudly our members. And yes, these are the trademarks of the IXPs. Some of them do not have that. And currently in 15 countries and economies, from the 15 countries and economies. So Japan and Korea, China and Taiwan and Hong Kong, also Singapore and Vietnam, Indonesia, and New Zealand, Australia, and the Malaysia, so Bangladesh, India, and Nepal. These are the very important countries, and also, of course, Thailand. Okay, and the recent news is in mainland China, we get members from the mainland China, the THNIC. CHNIX, they call it THNIC. They just started their neutral internet exchanges in the basin. Okay, and this is our current committee members, and I from JPNAP and also from the NIXI and from the MEGAIX and the HKIX and the Twitch. Well, maybe Bryant here. Okay, no, okay. Okay, so these 5 are the steering committee members. Okay, next please. And we had already 13 meetings in our Asian Pacific regions. Usually we had our meetings collocated with our APNIC or APNIC meetings. Okay, please go to the next. Okay, and the topics discussed here was these kind of things. And from the technical point of view, the last meeting we discussed about the peering DB. Maybe you are very familiar with the peering DB, and currently they are migrated to the peering DB 2.0. The previous one, the peering DB 1.0, is mainly operated by the ISPs. So IXP could not update their information in the peering DB. But then these peering DB 2.0, the IXP can also update their information. So now we have concrete information about the peering or interconnection all over the world. Okay, and also we discussed about sorry, please go back. Yeah, the routing server software. Also, the market situation in some countries, this time the Philippines. Yeah, and also we had some kind of discussion about our membership fee. Yes, please, next. Okay, from now, I would like to compare about internet exchanges in Asia Pacific region. Okay, so go to the next, please. Okay, and we often use these kind of indicator for IXP performance. One of them is the number of the ASN. The second one is the traffic, the peak traffic. And I added one as an average traffic per ASN, which is divided, the peak traffic is divided number of ASN of each IXPs. This shows that how big eyeballs and the content providers are gathered there, or how much broadband is penetrated in the market. Okay, so go to the next slides. Okay, so this, from now, the information I gathered from these IXPs of their corporations. Okay, so please go to the next one. The first one is in the number of ASN. Unfortunately, the Equinix Singapore does not disclose their data, but relatively they're the big one, so I put on their name on this one. So they are the, unfortunately, the top one. And these are the list of the big IXPs. So from the number of the ASN point of view, the Equinix is number one. The second one, the HKIX. And the third one is the New South Wales IX in Australia. And also the fourth one is a Mega IX from the city. This is also in Australia. And the fifth one is the JPIX Tokyo. And BKNIX is in this position, but still they're very young. So maybe in the near future they will grow. So please go to the next slide. And from the peak traffic perspective, of course, also the Equinix Singapore is the number one, and the second one is the HKIX. The third one is the JPNAP and the JPIX and the KINX in Korea. And BKNIX is still in this position, but then it's okay. Yeah, they are started. Okay, so the next slide, please. And average traffic per ASN. The top one is in the KINX. The Korea is known as a very broadband populated country, and also the second one is the JPNAP. Second, third, fourth is the JPNAP, Tokyo and Osaka. And also the JPIX Tokyo is in the fifth one. So Japan and Korea is in the penetrate countries of the broadband. But still, the BKNIX is positioned here. So comparing to the previous two slides, the BKNIX is in a placed higher position. This means that I think that in Thailand, the broadband is penetrated, and also the smartphone and the 4G started, and started to deploy it here. So the BKNIX position is here, I think. Okay. So the next slide, please. So I think the BKNIX in the Thailand will grow very rapidly in the near future. This is because I think in the previous presentations, the growth of the traffic or the users of in Thailand displayed. And I think such kind of the potential of the growth there in the Thailand. So I believe in the near future, Thailand or BKNIX will be the biggest internet exchanges in the Asia-Pacific region. Okay, so go next. So thank you very much, and also again, congratulations of that new the BKNIX Peering Forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Katsuyasu Toyama. Okay, let's proceed to our third speaker. He's a specialist on Internet Number Resource Certificate Framework, a co-author of many RFCs. Currently, he is a senior research and development scientist at APNIC. May I invite George Michelson, please present.
Hi, everyone. Before I go into my talk, I'd just like to talk briefly about a grant initiative that we have recently entered into. I actually owe Jane an apology because I believe some of this activity is co-branded with IZOC, and we haven't given you enough recognition on the slide pack. Is it the middle button or the left? Or you're doing it? Click. Click. So we have 4 different buckets of grant funding that's currently out in the community. It's a total of about 360,000 Australian dollars, which is slightly less than that in real money. I'd really like to encourage you to think about applying for this. I think you have enormous capacity in this region and in this economy to submit proposals which could sustain this grant process. I mean, Professor Kanchana, you are an obvious candidate to have students that are capable of doing good, solid work in this space. I would like to encourage all of you to think about applying for this money. The community impact grants are my particular favourite. I've been involved in the ISIF grant process for a number of years, and we have made a focus of investing in capacity building for women's health, education, child education initiatives in the region. But all of these areas are worth investing in. The co-branded one, I believe, is the cybersecurity initiative, which I think is something IZOC has also been focusing on. I'm sorry we didn't include that in the pack, but please think about applying for this cash, put forward proposals and participate in capacity building in the region. Click, and this is where you go to for more information. Click. Okay, so my talk is not actually really an exchange point talk. I am going to say some things about exchanges and about peering, but it's more a general information talk about what's going on. Click. And I have to apologize for making you sit through this. I have used great art of the Renaissance period and the Victorian era just to lighten things up. And if you find this amusing, the idea actually comes from a website that you may find more entertaining. So if you find my talk boring, just go to this URL and look at the pictures there. Click. So this is what we're doing now. We're a bunch of philosophers sitting in a room having a conversation about building out an exchange. I think I'm probably, where's the laser? This guy here. So it's good doing this, you know, it's good to plan stuff. This is actually by the artist Raphael. I wish Raphael Ho from Equinix Hong Kong was here because his name is on the pack. Click. The goal here is to look at the public data that APNIC has in our delegation records and also from BGP and try and understand the internet as the rest of the world sees it, looking inside Thailand. And to understand with you guys what might be some of the next steps we could do. Click. It's not really meant to be like this, okay? It's not this bad. Click. So we were quite aware as APNIC that some of our public data is very stale. We're not doing a good job of communicating with you about what we understand about resource utilization. So we're trying to build out information in the public eye that tells you guys what we know about you to help you understand your planning processes. And we think we can do this to try and improve decision making in general, because we want to build the best network we can. We want to help you guys build the best network you can, to understand your long-term investment needs, to understand if address policy is something that's affecting what you're doing. Click. So it's kind of like this. This is actually art by William Blake. If you ever see English football fans singing Jerusalem, do you know that song? And did those feet in ancient times walk upon England's pastures green? Well, William Blake wrote that song. He wrote the words to that song. Polymath, pop star, artist. Click. Okay, so the reason we're doing this using public data is that we wanted you to feel like you could also investigate the same sources, because this is about public policy. It's important that it's reproducible. So the stuff that I'm showing you, it's not magic. There's no special black magic information. Well, there's a little bit, because the UN ITU data we use is a little hard to get at. And some of the data that we're collecting about what we see people do, because of privacy concerns, we can't share that directly, but we can share data reductions. And the idea here is to encourage you guys to think about looking at the public information sources to do your planning. We want it to be reproducible, and we do intend making a long-term commitment. We've actually been doing measurements now for 6 years in the public eye. Click. So this is the class of public data sources we're using. The first one, the delegated files, this is a common format that was agreed by all of the registries quite a long time ago. It's a simple CSV style file, and it's quite complete. It has all of the address assignments as a historical data series, and it has a unique identifier that actually is about you as members, but we don't put your entity name there. We hide it behind a masking unique code. We've got AS data, we've got V4 data, we've got V6 data. So the second source we're using is the BGP dumps, which are, again, completely public. As Jeff said earlier, it isn't necessarily the same view everywhere, but the principle is the vast majority of this information is something you can all see. Click. This is what it's like when you build an exchange point. Sometimes you have to rip out a lot of old cabling. Click. And this is what it's like the day after when you've finished ripping out all the cabling. Click. Okay, so how do we process this? Click. Well, we take that data from delegated and we group things by the prefix grouping and the AS by economy data, and then we combine that using the BGP information about routing visibility. And we're also doing that when we measure V6 end user capability. We're tagging it by the prefix we see it from, the AS that's originating it, and the economy that we're seeing it come from. And we do counts. We are actually thinking about doing this down at the membership level to be more explicit. We know some of you use multiple ASs to split your routing in interesting ways. And then we do a collation against the UN ITU data. I'd like to say that the talk you gave, I'm sorry I can't pronounce your name properly, but the talk you gave about government planning, it was very obvious to me that you have better data than we could see about population. And you may notice that when I come to some slides in a minute. So then we're tabulating all of this and putting it together. Click. So this is an example of the kind of data we're going to be building out for each economy in our region and at a higher granularity for each member. Click. So this part, this is coming from the ITU and the UN source, and you'll see I've got the population as about 68 million. You had it as 65. We do like a CPI-derived population growth model. I think it's probably not accurate for Japan. Their population efficiently declined over the last decade. So we slightly got ahead of the game with you guys. We had you as 23 million users because that was the last public declaration that was made to the ITU. Now, I should say it's not uncommon for there to be significant drift against the ITU figures. 2 years ago at an APNIC meeting, the Chinese delegation announced 25% growth in 1 year. And I think you actually exposed 38 million as your current figure against 23. That's very significantly different. And I think at a planning level, it may be that government agencies, statistical entities have a role here to talk about what is the appropriate frequency of update for this data in the public eye. Because I think an annual return may be masking a significant amount of growth that's taking place. Click. So the next stuff we have is the stuff that comes from APNIC, delegated files. So the AS count and the number of addresses that we know are deployed in Thailand, that comes completely from the public data that we've exposed in the delegated file. Click. So then we have the part that's about BGP, which is the visibility of that data and the amount of ASs we see active in the system. Click. And then we have the measurements that we're doing. Click. And then we have the derivation, where we take some factors between these and combine the data together. Click. There's way, way too many colors. You can't look at that. Click. So I'm going to focus on 3 things that I think we need to talk about. And that's the phenomenal drop-off in the number of assigned ASs and the number that are visible in BGP, and the drop-off in the number of assigned ASs and the number that are visible in BGP routing V6, because I think this is the core of the issue that I'm here to talk about. Click. So where is the 6? That's a real question. We know it's been allocated, and we know from the previous slide that there is significantly more 6 available per head of population, even taking into account our adjustments on internet users. There is significantly more 6 available than there is 4 available. And we know that you have a lot measured by ISP. I did a simple reduction just before coming here, and I can see that you actually have 92 organizations that have been allocated V6. So on the one level, I could say, oh, you're not routing it. There's not enough routing. But 64 out of 93, that's actually really very good. That's world scale. So you guys are announcing 6 comparable to other economies, not only in region, but worldwide. The problem is not that you don't have the 6. The problem is that you haven't achieved deployment visible to end users. Click. So this is a league table based on visibility of V6. This is actually data which is not substantially changed from the last time I spoke in Thailand. Professor Kanchana organizes an annual workshop, AI and Tech, and it's a fantastic opportunity for international collaboration in research. I've made some very, very strong relationships with people from that. I'd really like to thank you for the work you put into organizing that. It's a good meeting. And at the meeting the last time I presented, I showed figures that are broadly similar to this. This is essentially the story of V6 capability inside the Thai government entities and inside the Thai tertiary education system. And you guys, specifically the ones in government and research, you get 6. You understand 6. You know how to make this work. The numbers are compelling. It's visible all the way through that tertiary education and research framework. Click. The problem is, if you then look at it based on ranking by sample count, it has almost no visibility with the agents of significance that are actually serving your national economy, with one exception, which is down at number 9, that I'm going to come back to later. Click. Okay, so we have to talk about this. We can't pretend there isn't something to talk about here. This is a real problem. Click. So here is a view that is one of the research visualizations we've been working on inside APNIC. This is a product of Byron Ellicott, who is in the research group, and he's taken the visible ASs that are involved in exchange activity, data exchange activity, inside the Thai economy and compared V4 to V6. So on the left, we have a really lovely diagram of the degree of connectivity. The distance into the center is an indication of how much we're seeing prefix activity there. It's similar to the skitter diagrams that CADA produce. It's a cruder version, but very quick to draw. And we can see that there's really quite good internal connectivity, and then there's a huge number of ASs on the edge, which are effectively stubs. They're singly connected into someone else. But the story on the right-hand side, which is the V6 peering story, although the same people are in the same kind of center mesh, it's a much more sparse story. There's actually less richness in the V6 connectivity that's taking place inside this economy. Click. Okay, so this isn't actually that bad a story because it's only the view that we can see externally doing simple derivations from BGP. We think that you have better paths. We think you have private peerings. We think you have private relationships. But it is sparse, and you could do much better than this, leveraging things like the initiative to build out the exchange presence here. You have an opportunity to use that decision to improve your V6 peering relationships. And I think these opportunities are fairly obvious. Click. So other people are also able to inform what's going on here. And the RIPE NCC have the Atlas measurement system. I think quite a lot of you have got Atlas probes. It's quite a good deployment here. It's an interesting box, small, very small device that will put a small kilobit level of traffic out and can do trace routes and check DNS systems and check behaviors. And I've got 2 slides that I took from a pack that Miriam and Fergal presented earlier this year. Click. And this explains a tool developed by Emil Arbin, the IXP country Jedi. And it gives you an idea of how much traffic stays local. It uses trace routes between the probes in an economy to see where the packets actually go. What are the intermediate routes? And it can show you the distinction between V4 and V6. And it can also show when they transit known exchanges. The tool's under development. It's very open. If you want to get involved, Emil would love to have participation. Click. This is Emil, and it's got a bit more detail. If you go to the pack, there's the URL that you can get involved in. The other initiative worth noticing here is the OpenIP map, which is another attempt to construct some extra value by collating information about the disposition of addresses, leveraged off what people know for themselves. That's something you might like to think about. Click. So this is a static view. The tool is quite dynamic, and it shows you the size of flows. And if you click on links, you can be shown the specific relationships between them. But what this is showing is the Thai traffic that we could measure from, I think, about 15 probes has a quite significant volume of peering relationships that necessarily transit the west coast of the States or Japan or flow down to Singapore. Your traffic is not staying local. Click. So in a more zoomed in view, we do know some of these are agencies that are actually strictly speaking outside Thailand and are using Thai resources to have a local presence for some regional engagement. But we also know that some of this is actually customer visible behavior, and it's happening in 4 and in 6. It's not only happening in the one technology space. Click. So you have an opportunity to look at this and understand the dynamics of packet flows that are taking place in your own systems. For instance, you could take your web logs, you could look at where the traffic's coming from, you could pop it into this to compare at the AS level and understand where you're exposed to offshore data flows. Click. And I think personally that this is something that at a strategic level you really want to tackle. If you imagine as a customer perspective that you're trying to use technology to talk to someone you know is only across town or in a different village or perhaps in a city in the south of the state, but your packets are flowing via Singapore or flowing via Japan or flowing via America, that's a hugely suboptimal experience for them as individuals. It's added delay, and it's exposed to all the risks of fiber breakage, and at a national strategic level, that's a fantastic amount of data about your national economy that's flowing outside the boundaries of your own control. I don't think this is something that you necessarily want to do without conscious thought. You need to think about where the data's flowing. Click. So, how did we get to this situation? Click. Well, I did a quick review over the history of delegations, looking specifically at Thailand, counting the resources by class that you guys got and the number of entities. And I've done a timeline as a set of graphs to try and talk a bit about the growth and the extent to which that might be influencing what's happening here. Click. So this is the combination slide that shows all 4 categories. We've got the growth of V4 with a very, very interesting flat transition. And we've got the growth of 6, and we've got the growth of membership, and we've got what's the other one? Oh, that's right, it's 6-4. Yep, click. So if we take RIR membership by time, what I've done is I've taken the natural doublings. I've just taken some points where you guys basically doubled in size. And your first period, the early period through to the end of the 90s, mid-90s, you got up to 20 members and you doubled to 40 in about the same interval of time. There was quite a lot of rapid growth early, and I think there might have been a decision to slow down the number of discrete entities because you entered quite a long period where there was no increase in the number of members of APNIC, people participating. But then across the 2000s, you had really quite marked acceleration. And if you look at the later stage, you'll see that the second doubling, so going from 80 to 160 members, happened in a significantly shorter period of time. And that has increased. We've actually seen an increase in the rate of new members coming from this region. So why might that be? Click. Well, the reason is also exposed in the AS data. We're seeing a marked surge in the number of ASs that are apparently being allocated in this region, which suggests an increase in the number of people participating in data exchange at that level. That's really interesting. Why are so many people getting involved directly in the BGP system? Click. Well, it's possible that it's a side effect of the introduction of the final/8 policy. Because if we look at the timeline of address allocation, you had an initially quite long period with some accelerations. You then had a second phase, which was slightly quicker. Your third phase was extremely rapid. Your fourth phase, very, very, very condensed. But when we finally ran out of addresses, we entered this period where the rate of growth is essentially linear, and against the scale of the number of addresses that were released in the early phase, it's a tiny, tiny, tiny growth rate. And the reason is none of you as mature members can get any more V4. You have to rely on your customers and your relationships that don't currently hold address coming to APNIC to get their small tranche of address, which is an essentially linear growth rate. You're bottlenecked behind the consumption rate of V4 in this model. Click. If you look at V6, well, it has a later start date, but you've had a really accelerated uptake in getting hold of your V6 resources, and it has skyrocketed, I suspect because we have a process that basically says, click here for your 6 address. So we don't feel that this is an allocation problem. It's not a problem of access to the resource. It's about the extent to which you're able to deploy this to actually make use of it in end user eyes. Click. Okay, so what's going on in the neighborhood? Click. Well, we're taking our measurement activity, looking at end users, we're ranking them by the number of random assignments that we make, which is not actually market share, but it's kind of interesting in terms of the number of random samples that people see. And we're looking at capability, how many of the people can actually do 6. Let's go look. Okay, this is Singapore, which measured on a scale to 100% has been fairly flat at around 10%. Click. But one AS, StarHub, with a bit of an interesting glitch. StarHub has actually got to about 50% penetration. That's really significant deployment. Click. If we look at the ranking, you can see that by capability, there's an interesting range of people there, including some players who are not end-user focused. Microsoft Corp, for instance, are clearly not predominantly in the business of serving end users. Click. But if we resort that by customers, you can go, yep, that one, you can see that the StarHub cable network is the 4th largest in a random sample. So the 4th largest player in that economy has jumped to dual stack. Click. Okay, Korea, again, very low capability. Click. But one provider, SK Telecom, has actually jumped to 25%. Click. Now, this one is a problem for our measurement technology. We're not actually getting placements into mobile as much as we'd like, and SK Telecom is overwhelmingly in cellular. They've done a dual stack deployment using 464 Translate, so it's new handsets in Android that are being deployed into V6 based networks using DNS 6.4 for the 4 component. Click, and if you change the ranking, they're actually the 4th largest provider in our measurement, but I've been told officially by KISA, these guys have 50% of mobile, and they are very probably significantly higher in terms of their global impact in Korean capability. So we're under measuring. To all intents and purposes, half of the Korean mobile market is now exposed to dual stack if they get a new device. That is very, very significant. Click. This is Cambodia, and there's a small amount of capacity there if you look at this view, but if you look at the high volume, there really isn't significant activity in this economy yet. Click. This is Myanmar, and again, there is some capability latent inside the economy, but it's not actually yet end user visible. Click. Japan. Japan is kind of strange because this is an economy that by all intents and purposes really should be up at 80–90% capability. Click. But and this is the view based on high level penetration. Click. But there's a substantive issue there to do with the architecture of their national fibre network. And much though it pains me to say so, the two NTT figures here are essentially the reason that Japan shows a sustained lower rate of deployment. If you look at the natural competitors, KDDI and SoftBank and SONET, they have very, very high levels across all of their architected networks. Japan is busting with V6 capability, but it's been suppressed by an architectural decision that is having long-term consequences for their national deployment. Click. Malaysia. Now, Malaysia is a real success story. I think it's lovely that you guys are having an ASEAN-focused meeting in here. I believe there's another one taking place this week elsewhere. But Malaysia is a phenomenal success. Click, and it's down to one ISP, THNIC, that has already reached 20% penetration. I believe that this is the former national monopoly telco, and they've decided to re-architect in this way. Click. So they've had a large capital investment around deploying V6. The figures here of capability lag a bit. We're calculating them using different sliding windows, which is why it doesn't match. But they've had really quite a significant effect on the whole of the national economy in 6 by doing this. Click. And if you look at it again ranked by eyeballs, you can see that they really are the predominant player. Click. Thought I'd throw in some other people. Britain, doing nothing for years, finally breaking through. Click. It's these guys. It's Sky. Sky is a very efficient cable provider that is running centrally managed customer premises equipment. They're using the mechanism that means they can remotely manage all the devices in their network. And they made a decision to deploy V6 at the beginning of the year, and they have been doing early release in 2015, and they've basically just gone full bore. They are actually at 50%. It just hasn't come through yet. So this is a game changer for the UK economy. They're at least half of the market there. Click. So again, you can see that in content side, there are, people show up, click. But in capacity terms, it really is all about this one provider. Now, that really intrigues me. If you had a market with that many big players, Sky, Virgin, British Telecom, and one of them jumps, what are the other guys going to do? When are they going to move? I mean, this has impact. This has effect in terms of the expectation people have for service delivery. Facebook are telling us that if you have true V6 all the way into their core network, you actually get a better user experience, which potentially means Sky can start to do quite subtle advertising and marketing saying, Facebook's better on us. Click. America, click. Okay, T-Mobile, another DNS 6.4 with 464 translate, they're at 50%, click. Comcast, total network moved. They've done it. Triple play, V6, click. So here's their rankings, click. And again. Okay, so the summary here, click. You guys have no shortage of underlying capability. You have the ASNs, you have the prefixes. But your future growth is effectively harvesting linear rates of availability of addresses. You are now actively constraining your network technology behind asking your customers to apply for more V4. And this is where every other growth curve we have for you is in exponential growth rate. You are constraining yourselves because you're stuck in 4. And you have very low exposure of V6 peering, apart from in academic and government, where the capability is there. We know that you can do this. We also know that a significant volume of your peering relationships transit offshore. And we derived this not because of private information, but solely from public information any of you can find. all of this is publicly visible in the global internet economy. You can own this problem. You can solve this problem. Click. So if we do 6, we can all go and party. Click. And these guys, AS133481, AIS Fiber, they have been hot on the V6 mailing list. Deutsche Telekom noticed this. Facebook confirmed it. Akamai confirmed it. Google confirmed it. Externally, we are seeing this one, I believe it's cable fiber provider, one provider, we've seen them absolutely surge. They've made a decision to go dual stack, and it's publicly visible, and we're all out there talking about it. This story could be about you guys. Click, or things could get a lot worse. Okay, that's it from me.
Thank you very much for an entertaining talk. Okay, and for the end of this session, may I invite all of the 3 speakers on stage once again, and may I invite Professor Kanchana Kanchanasut, the Vice Chairman of THNIC, to present a gift of appreciation to all of our speakers in this session. So, Josh, you're on stage. Oh. And Jane Coffin. And Katsuyasu Toyama. Okay, before we break, we have a short session called Peering Personals. And in this session, participants in this room will have a chance to introduce themselves and their businesses. This is for them to get a chance to be connected. And participants will have 2 minutes each to talk about their businesses. And if you didn't get a chance in this session, there are 3 other peering personal sessions. And with this, may I invite Kun Kitinan will take over the stage, please.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Kitinan. So I will run the peering personal along to the event for this round. We have 2 members. First is TCC Technology. Please stand by on the side of the stage. And the next is SGAX, Singapore Internet Exchange. So please welcome TCC Technology.
Good morning, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. We are from TCC Technology or TCCT. Our company provides the IT infrastructure services, and we now have 3 data centers located in Thailand. And we have Asia Data Center Alliance in 5 countries, which include Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Vietnam. Apart from that, we also work with our strategic partners worldwide to deliver the reliable solutions like cloud connectivity and etc. We also position ourselves as a carrier neutral hub, which is the preferred choice for both local and international multinational companies. And that's the very brief background about our company. And now let me introduce our management. Over there is our general manager, Kun Busalin Pradityon. She is taking care of the operation. You may later discuss with her. And myself, Walipon Sayasit, Corporate Communication Director. Both of us and our team are here with aim to connect and collaborate with all of you. And last but not least, we would like to thank you, BKNIX, and we do hope and wish this event one of the most successful forum of the year. Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Wulipon. So the next is Singapore Internet Exchange. Mr. Jeff.
Hello, hi, good morning. I think I'm standing between you and the coffee break, so I will keep to the 2 minutes, and I promise. Okay, I'm Jeff Chan. I'm the Director, Sales and Marketing from Singapore Internet Exchange. First of all, I think I want to thank BKNIX for giving us the opportunity to share, to do a quick overview to everyone here. Now, in 2009, Singapore government, or to be precise, IDA, stands for Infocomm Development Authority of Singapore, recognizes the need to create a national IX that's open, neutral, right? In addition to all the commercial IXs that were operating back then. So hence, Singapore Internet Exchange, or in short, SGIX, was formed, right? Our mission is very simple. Basically, is to enhance the internet landscape by promoting peering and interconnection between service providers. It can be content providers, cloud providers, or any enterprises that has ASN numbers. Okay, now SGIX is an association-based IX, right? It is not commercial. It is not profit-driven. It's not a commercial entity. It is members-owned. So basically, we exist to seek and to represent the best interests of all our peering members. All right. Today, you know, our coverage is nationwide. We have presence in multiple data centers, and we also have partners that will bring our coverage across the entire island. Right, next. All right. Interestingly, just now I was observing one of the slides from Dr. Shalampo, right, about the landmass of Thailand. I do a quick calculation. Now, Singapore is only 0.14% of Thailand, slightly bigger than Phuket, all right? Maybe that makes our deployment a lot easier, right? So today we have 3 core nodes. If you're familiar with Singapore, I believe a lot of you have been there. We are located in Global Switch, OneNet, as well as Digital Realty, right, East and West. Right. So in addition to that, we also have, as I mentioned, we have several partners. Sorry, I think the alignment is a little bit out, but they can bring our peering service into different parts of the island, including other data centers, such as New Tech Park, Keppel, Equinix, etc., etc. Okay. All right. Basically, I think we're all familiar with peering. So these are the key benefits that a member can get from peering. Now, definitely, we'll improve the content, accessibility, okay, and hopefully, which I believe that you will help to lower the operating cost, especially the bandwidth cost, and I think that's important, okay, of all our members. Okay, now indirectly, you increase your customer satisfaction and also increase business opportunities. Now today we have 100 meg port, although I think that a lot of us has probably think that it is something in the past. No, there are still some providers that needs 100 meg, but we are moving away. Now is to really 1G is a norm, or even 10G is a norm. For members that requires more than 10G, currently what we do is we will do a link aggregation or multiple 10Gs. But I think to keep up with the increasing demand of peering bandwidth, we'll be doing a infrastructure upgrade in Q3 this year, right? The ultimate aim is to, of course, is to offer more than 10G ports. We are considering 25G, 40G, or even 100G, but I think probably 100G is the way to go. If you want more information, you can always visit our website, which I'll show you the website address later. Okay. Okay, this is a snapshot of the traffic for the last 12 months. As you can see that there's an upward trend, right? And it's increasing. Today, our peak traffic, since January 2016, our peak traffic has surpassed 70 gig. And you can see that there's a significant increase from December to January onwards. You can see, and it's still climbing today. That's also because there's one of the video streaming service provider that's connected. All right. Okay, next slide. Sorry? Oh, okay. So, okay, I just skip this. Yeah. Okay, just go to our website. All the information can be found there. www.sgix.sg. All right. And the last slide, if you need any information, you can just email us at info@sgix.sg, or I'll be here for the next 2 days. You can catch me anytime. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Jeff. So the time is limited, or I will close the pairing personal one here. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, so if you want a chance to introduce yourself like this, contact Kun Kitinan during the break. So next we have the coffee break. We have 2 breaks, one in front of the room and the other one at the back of the room. And please come back here in 15 minutes, about 11:30. Thank you. Okay, so let me invite the first speaker of this session. It will be presented by Anai Ribata, a research analyst from Telegeography. She'll be talking on the topic of connectivity trends in Asian markets. So please.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is doing okay. It's only 90 more minutes for lunch, so I promise I'll be fast. And before, I guess I'm gonna move here so you guys can see me. Before I start, I really want to thank BKNIX for the opportunity to be here today. And my name is Anai Ribata, and I work at Telegeography, and today's presentation is going to be about connectivity trends in Asian markets. Okay, so for those that are not familiar with Telegeography, we are a market research firm based in Washington, D.C., and our research focuses on international networks on the telecommunications market at the wholesale and enterprise level. Most of the data that you're going to see here today comes from our Global Bandwidth Research Service report, and it has been updated recently. And throughout the presentation, you're going to hear me saying the term use international bandwidth over and over. So I want to clarify how we define this term. Use international bandwidth refers to the sum of all capacity deployed for internet backbones, which is a public internet IP public links. Private networks. Private networks have like different elements, but they're mostly formed by content providers. But they also include financial institutions, educational and research agencies, as well as government entities. And last but not least, there is still capacity deployed for switch voice networks, although it's very, very little. Okay, we're going to start. Around the globe, demand for international bandwidth continues to grow. And because of this robust growth, operators around the world continue to undertake new network deployments as well as new network upgrades. Between 2014 and 2015, the pace of growth of international bandwidth increased at 40% globally and reached about 295 terabits per second by the end of December 2015. So how does this demand looks at the regional level, and how does Asia position versus the rest of the world? So the graph here shows the compound annual growth rate, or CAGR, of bandwidth demand across the different regions that we study at Telegeography. And if we pay attention, Africa, Asia, and Oceania, they have CAGRs of about 50% between 2011 and 2015. And let's keep in mind that bandwidth demand growth has to do a lot with levels of network adoption across the different regions. But by no means I want to underestimate the CAGR's experience in Latin America and the Middle East. They also have a strong CAGRs of about 40%. And even the very mature and established markets of the United States and Europe, they have experienced quite a growth of about 40% CAGRs. So taking a look here in Asia, Asia international bandwidth usage, it's pretty strong, as we can see in this graph. And even though it has been a decline on the pace of growth this past year, this happened because demand in Asia, it's becoming more mature, and it's more in line with what we're seeing in the Euros of in the markets of Europe and the US. Just to give you the right numbers, annual growth of bandwidth demand in Asia was 43% this past year. In the United States was 42%, and in Europe was 39%. So we're seeing like Asia, it's slowly getting in line with demand on other regions. Something that I would like to point out is bandwidth usage in terms of absolute values is doubling every 2 years. In 2011, we estimate about 10 terabits per second for use international bandwidth. In 2013, about 22 terabits per second, and this past December, it's close to 49 terabits per second. So, similar to how bandwidth usage varies greatly by region, it also varies greatly at the country level within one region. This is international bandwidth usage by country for a few markets here in Asia. Blue bars show use bandwidth as of December 2015, and the yellow bars show the CAGR of the past 3 years. So Asia in particular is quite interesting because we have two very different markets. On one hand, we have a handful of countries that have had ample bandwidth for quite some time. Most of them, the East Asian nations of like China, Japan, Singapore, even South Korea and Taiwan. And on the other hand, we have those markets that even though have low level of usage, they do have very high levels of CAGR. That means that we're seeing that demand on these countries are picking up. This has to do a lot with access to international connectivity. So just to give you an example, Japan by 2018, and including those submarine cables that are proposed, will have 21 submarine cables by the end of 2018. While Cambodia, on the other hand, will see, hopefully, its first submarine cable by the end of this year. So there's a big, big gap between access to connectivity at the international level among the different countries here in Asia. And this kind of comes in line with what we've been hearing before. This is Thailand, and since we're here in Bangkok, I really want to show this graph. And I'm happy that it's very close to what the speaker of NetCat presented earlier today. These data only concerns to international internet bandwidth. This is all like public IP, and it's as of June 2015. So Singapore and Malaysia are the top routes for international connectivity here in Bangkok, in Thailand, and they make up more of the 50% of internet into the country, followed by the United States, China, and others. Among the 30% for others, we have two European countries, United Kingdom and France. We have Australia for Oceania, and the rest of countries are here neighbor countries like Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. Go back to the global overview. The US remains as the major hub for international bandwidth connectivity. in 2015, about 83% of the used international bandwidth was, of the used interregional international bandwidth was connected to the United States and Canada. This is down from the 96% that we estimate back in 2005. So it has been a decline on the, on the reliability of connectivity to the United States. And we believe this has happened because there have been an influx of new routes for submarine cables globally. We're seeing a lot of investments in Asia, in Africa, in the Middle East, and even in Europe. So this trend is going to continue, and we're going to see like all the other regions are going to keep decentralizing away from the US, which is a good sign. And Asia is following that pattern. So Asia continues to decentralize away from the US. Let's take a close look at this graph in particular. So this is the share of international connectivity by regions here connected in Asia. Green is bandwidth connected to the US. Blue is intra-Asia connectivity, and red is Europe. If we take a look at the green bars, the share of connectivity is slowly declining these past 4 years. So in 2011, connectivity to the US make up about 51%, and in 2015 went down to 47%. In 2011, intra-Asia connectivity accounted for 36%. 4 years later, now we have 41%. So this is good. We want intra-connectivity in one region, and mainly we believe this has happened because a lot of the content is being hosted and cached locally and domestically here in the region instead of going all the way back to the US or Europe. And this trend for intra-regional connectivity is the same across the other regions in the globe. Same way as there has been a shift in connectivity in Asia, there's also a shift in the source of Asia bandwidth demand. The graph here shows the 3 elements of bandwidth international usage. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there is like a very thin yellow line in the top, and that's capacity deployed for voice, which is like very, very teeny tiny, it's less than 1%. But then we have the big 2 elements. Red is for IP backbones, and blue for private networks. And as I mentioned before, private networks are mostly formed by content providers. We're talking about the Googles, the Facebooks, the Microsofts, the Amazons. And this graph in particular shows intra-Asia. This doesn't take into account trans-Pacific, okay? So if we see content providers are deploying lots of capacity here in the region. And the growth for international bandwidth demand comes mostly from the content providers. So the share of connectivity, the share of used international bandwidth for content from private networks, was about 21% in 2005, and it's about 42% in 2015. We expect that this trend is going to continue to grow. So where are located? Where are like these content providers, guys, located? The icons that are colored are data centers that are already operational. And as you can see, they are everywhere across the globe. And then the gray icons are the data centers that are being planned or built as of now. So we are seeing a lot of activity on the east side of the US, similar to Western Europe. And here in Asia, we are aware that Amazon announced 3 data centers, one in India, one in South Korea, and one in China. So this is just give us a perspective of where they are located. So there's not only investment on the data center business, but there's also a lot of investments on the subsea infrastructure. The graph over here shows the amount of money that was spent and that will be spent between 2014 and 2018. Blue bars refer to the money that has been already invested between 2014 and 2015, and red bars is all the future, this is like cables that are being built and cables that were announced. So Latin America saw a lot of money spent these past 2 years, and this is mainly because 2 big cables came online. But then if we take a look at Asia and we add up the money that will be spent on the Trans-Pacific route, we come with about like more than $1.5 billion that will be spent on submarine cables in this region. But let's please keep in mind that maybe not all this money is going to be spent. A lot of money, a lot of cables get proposed, but they never get funded. So this is just an idea of how much money will be spent. And to put that on a visual representation, we're seeing a lot of activity of cables coming online on the Trans-Pacific. And some of the projects here are the Cable Faster, SEA US, as well as APG. And then we also have a lot of proposed cables here in the region. Like we see some systems here on the Maldives, and even ATISA. And then we also include here CME Wi-Fi because it's landing in several nations here in the country. So it will be interesting to see this map again next year and see which cables stick around and which ones didn't, and then also to see which cables will be proposed. So I'm going to talk briefly about prices, because new infrastructure means a lot of new capacity. New capacity means competition, and competition means price erosion. So if you are a buyer, good for you. If you're a seller, not so good. I want to clarify that these prices are median monthly prices for a 10G wavelength. So the range of the actual data pool is different. So our low can be very low, or the high can be very high, depending on the route. So this is the median. And these prices are collected directly from carriers that offer these services in these specific routes. So there's something like, there are 2 things that we're seeing here, right? Expensive prices on one side and like cheaper prices on the other. And this has to do a lot with like connectivity. So if we take a look, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Singapore, Tokyo, and Hong Kong, Seoul, they do have the lowest prices for transport. And this is back to like the beginning of the presentation. It's based on how much access they have to international connectivity. But then we're seeing like the routes like Mumbai, Singapore, even Bangkok, Singapore, they're still remaining a premium. But something interesting, if you take a look at Mumbai, Singapore, is like the CAGR is the highest, meaning that like competition is finally kicking in, and hopefully prices will keep dropping. Unfortunately, there is no CAGR for Bangkok, Singapore in this time. It's because like our data for that route is pretty new. So maybe next year we'll be able to show the price erosion for this route. And similar to transport, IPT, they vary by city, and they're also going down. So same story, well-served markets, in this case, Singapore, Tokyo, Seoul. These are cities where traffic exchange, it's a common practice, versus newer traffic exchange markets like Bangkok itself. And if we even take a look at Singapore, which is the most competitive hub here in Asia, and it's about $4 per meg for a 10 gig circuit. It's still expensive if we compare to markets in Europe and markets in the US. In fact, Singapore is 4 times more expensive than London and Los Angeles. But hey, like the CAGR shows that prices keep going down, so hopefully maybe in the future we're going to see these prices converging. And I promise I was supposed to be fast. So here, the outlook. Demand in Asia is more than doubling every 2 years. Private networks demand is on the rise. Several cables are currently being built, and even more cables are proposed. And continued price erosion should be expected across the different routes here in Asia. And thank you. If you have any questions, I'm going to stick around, so feel free to like talk to me if you want. Thank you. Oh, hold on. One question.
Just one quick thing, Matt from Facebook. That was embarrassing. When you were showing those stats at the very beginning of the presentation, I would assume that a very significant portion of what you label as China is actually Hong Kong. Yeah, no, I mean, politics aside, and the fact that I live in Hong Kong, I think from a networking point of view, that's very important to make that distinction, because that's very, very different markets.
Thank you for that clarification. This includes both. Hong Kong is included here, and it's just like a methodology definition that we use at telegeography.
Just a quick question. It's Jane from ISOC. Are you looking at all at the importance of cross-border connectivity and, no, but in the future, well, for internet. So what we're seeing in some regions is that as soon as you allow better cross-border connectivity, you're also looking at prices coming down because traffic can be exchanged faster. So do you have any analyses for the region on that, or will you do that in the future?
Sorry, and I'm here down. To your question, we do forecast prices, and we can definitely talk more about it. But you're right. Once we see that more internet, like at the international level, comes to a country, and like instead of relying on going back to like the big hubs like Europe and the States, prices tend to go down. Like your the money that you spend to like bring all this capacity is less. Your cost is less. Definitely, you can offer a better price to your clients, and that comes in line with your comment. And this is not only in Asia. This is happening across the world. Of course, there are like markets that are like emerging markets. Like Asia is kind of like in that transition. It used to be an emerging market, and it's becoming more a mature market with like more competition. But in Africa, the Middle East, and in Latin America, we still see very high prices, but the CAGR is very, very high, meaning like prices are like slowing down quite fast. Any other question? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Anahi Ribata, for very interesting talk. And next, we have Kempe Fukuda. He is the Director of Network Services of NTT Communications Corporation. Please.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kempe Fukuda, and I'm from NTT Communications. Actually, earlier today there was some mentioning about OCN being not cooperative from IPv6. Yes, unfortunately, it's my network. I am really aware of why this is happening, so I'm hoping that next year or the year after this may change. So, but anyway, today I was actually asked by the organizer to talk about this topic, which, oh, should I do this way? Okay. So today I want to talk about some of the things about fiber optics and internet, and maybe some of the challenges that I foresee as an operator and also as a management personnel running the network. So today I'm planning to cover these topics. The first two items are more information for you. I think many of you know already, so I'll just run through it quickly. And after that, I'll talk in more depth about what we foresee from NTT as a challenge running a global internet in Asia. So, sorry I forgot to write the source, but this is how it's interconnected today. So you see a lot of traffic across the Pacific, and of course there's great, how do you say, mesh in Asia, and we see a lot of things going around in the Indian Ocean, and of course needless to say about Atlantic. And so my responsibility is offering internet service around this area in Asia and Oceania. And so from there, I have to foresee many things, like trying to figure out how to get my Southeast Asian customers to Europe, for example, or the Australian customers to US, or maybe even the Northeast Asian customers to US and Europe as well. And here, so, come on. Is it too heavy? I don't know. Okay. So these are some of the cables that we use today. So this is more like real trans-Pacific from Asia to US. We see the old systems like Japan, US, or TGN, Tata, PC1 is our old, TP is also old. Quite new are AAG and Unity. Intra-Asia, these are some of the major ones, APCN2, this PACnet, sorry, I have to change it to Telstra. But these are the things that we see. And this is coming up soon. I heard it's next month? No. So, July or August. Finally, APG is coming. So that's going to help more of like Thailand and all the other countries around this region to have more connectivity or access to the global world. Transatlantic, there are so many cables running. And actually we use probably like 8 systems, I believe, out of these. Going too fast. So, Indian Ocean, now it's a very hot topic. There's A1 that's going to come up, and there's CME-V4 that's existing, I believe, and CME-V5 that's coming up sometime soon, I heard. Come on. CME-V4, CME-V5, and, well, anyways, I think I should talk more about what we have for ourselves. So, this is the internet backbone that I'm taking care of today. I think some of the people may be familiar. This is AS2914, which is the former Verio network that I look after. And so as you can see, like in the Asia-Pac region, we already have more than 2 terabits of capacity. It's actually more, because this slide is a bit outdated. It's from at the end of last year. So since then, we've been adding more capacity, especially in Asia. Not much in Trans-Pacific. So we foresee, and this is excluding our peering capacity. So I think we have about 2.5 to 3 terabits of capacity available across inside Asia. Okay. And this is something very interesting. This is the traffic that is coming from US to Asia. This is only our network, so it may be a little bit different, but dominant is going to Japan. But you can see like Singapore has a lot, Hong Kong has a lot, and Taiwan, there's small things like Taiwan, Australia, Korea, Malaysia, Indonesia. But what we can see is that there aren't so much traffic coming out from the other parts of Asia to US, from US. And if we highlight, come on. So this is Japan. So if you look at Japan, okay. So this is mostly from US, some from Europe, and some from, the Asia piece is about what? This is, I think the scale was 50, so fine. A little less than 100 gigs. Come on. Okay, this is Hong Kong. Hong Kong, we see a lot of traffic. Both it's Japan and US. And not much intra-Asia, but some going to Europe. Singapore is a lot, as you can see, there's a lot of traffic growing that is destined to Europe rather than to the US is now going a little bit down, and Japan is usually about the same. Okay, so today we use these kind of cables. Trans-Pacific is, PC1 is a cable that we acquired back in 2010. Japan-US is original consortium cable. This is Tata. This is my friend KDD and Unity. Google is here. Transatlantic, these are the cables. Intra-Asia, AAC is a cable that we built together with PLDT, Telecom Malaysia, and the others. SJC is the KDD and Google cable. APCN2, TP are the consortium. Westbound is westbound meaning we go to Singapore to Europe through the Indian Ocean. So we rely on CME4 and so BBG, which is TM and cable and wireless and somebody else cable, that has RFS a month or two ago, and now they are provisioning some capacity for us. And unfortunately, this only goes to the Middle East. My BBG terminates in Oman, so from there we will ride on EIG to go all the way to Europe. And this is quite fascinating. I cannot wait longer to see how it's going to change the dynamics of the traffic flow. So, cables. So like across Japan and US, I have 110 gigs. Actually, I'm converting some of them to some of the 10 gigs to 100 gigs today. But still, we have to make sure that when one cable fails, there's still enough capacity to carry all the traffic from one point to the other. So what we do today is, if we have, if you see the cable routes, there are many two city pairs that have more than 4 cable routes. In those cases, we will do like 4 cable groups where we will combine some of the cables into one group and then form 4, so that I can usually then, if one fails, I can use like 75% of the capacity. But seems it doesn't make sense today. So today we are doing it like 67% utilization over the 4 cables. So we still have some room for additional burst capacity. If there aren't so many cable systems, for example, the most typical case is between Singapore and London for Europe. For example, there's CME3 and CME4, and there are new cables that came up, but we still believe that for those we will just do a 50% utilization, which is quite expensive, but make sure that it's redundant enough. And actually the cost, so cost is quite a headache today. the way we own capacity, we have three ways. One is our own cable. So we build it, like we join a consortium, or we find partners to build. So it's our own. The other is IRU, which is buying the rights for 15 years. And one is lease capacity. Some of the cables, when we look at the price, for example, one most typical case is transatlantic from US to Europe. The price of a 10 gig is now less than 10K per month, 10K US dollars. Which means I don't know when the price drop will stop. Which comes back to, I cannot buy IRUs, it's too risky. So the IRU is very, very difficult. It's like gambling. So like back in 2007, 2008, I bought a 10 gig capacity on IRU from Japan to US. That was a private cable, and it cost me, the total contract value was 3.2 million US for 15 years. Today, I can get it for probably 1 point something. So I lost my gamble. That goes the same for capacity between Singapore and Europe. The first one I bought, my CMV4, was 8 million US for 10 gig. I thought it was very cheap. Now I can get a CMV4 for maybe less than half the price. So do I want to really buy buy IRU, or should I go lease? Or maybe I should build it on my own. But building on my own, still, I cannot foresee whether I can win my gamble, because the market price drop can sometimes exceed the actual, the cost of the cable. And this we cannot foresee, and so this is something that I'm having a very big headache today. So I just mentioned about this, and especially when I look at the niche routes, Thailand was a very good example. Going to Singapore or going to Malaysia are the only two options that we can see, except if we want to pay really, really expensive price to go terrestrial, asking the Chinese friends to carry us to Hong Kong. But even without that, going to Malaysia and Singapore is more expensive than going from Japan to Singapore or Hong Kong. There's another one from Singapore to Australia that's also very, very expensive. There are new cables that may come up. When that comes up, we may see a price drop. But what I hear from those carriers, the companies that are providing the cables, they believe those are premium routes, so they may just keep the price high, which means there's no business, they may disappear, or we may find somebody else to actually destroy the market for them. The other thing is resiliency. So in Asia, there are a lot of cable cuts. Actually, we experienced a very big one a few weeks ago, where 3 out of 6 or 7 cables that are available in Asia were cut. And that was quite a disaster. But if I want to make sure that I have all the traffic passing, then I need to pay more. I have to buy more cables from other companies. But then comes the question of how much can I sell to my customer. Today, the Singaporeans, I think it was Singapore. Singapore and Hong Kong, the market for, like wholesale transit providers like ourselves, it's very, very bad. It's quite similar to Europe and US. It's like $2, maybe $2.50 for a 10 gig IP transit port. If I have to live up with that, there's no way I can afford additional cables. So that's a very big challenge that I'm foreseeing. And there's another thing where it's a very new concept. We are trying to talk with other service providers and carriers on mutual restoration. So each carrier has their own cables. Maybe we can share that when something happens. Like I hear that between Singapore and Indonesia, there's such a mechanism, but of course you have to pay for it. But I think that's a very good way to do, to keep up the internet connectivity. The other thing is latency, where gaming, video, for example, are getting to be quite latency sensitive. And that will require us not to route through the farthest. For example, Singapore, if I go through US to Europe, it's cheaper. It's probably like at 2/3 of the price of going through the Indian Ocean. But customers do not permit that, allow that for us to, which is very bad. And the last challenge I see is the OTT and the CDNs. They give, well, I won't say bad thing. But actually, so the Facebook, Google, Akamai, these people came to Asia, which is good. That saved a lot of capacity going to across the Pacific. This was very good because ever since 2012, 13, I believe, the traffic growth of the Trans-Pacific circuits, originally it was like 30%, dropped to like 10, 12, somewhere around that range. But at the same time, of course, the traffic intra-Asia is growing a lot, but we foresee a lot of the content providers' traffic to be, the traffic trend is, more closed within that region. Unfortunately, Thailand is still a bit more to go, but I hear a lot about Google, for example, has caching all of the service providers in Thailand. I don't. So that means everybody will not buy my transit, unfortunately, but it's too bad. But these are the things that's happening, and I think this is good, but we need to actually try to figure out how these content providers and the CDNs will, deploy their data center, their caches, their servers, so that we can be more intelligent to plan our network inside Asia. So this is what I see, like it's 20x. This is only, this is more Japan, but we see like in the 4 years, the traffic grew 20 times, and CDN is 5 times. And what was next? And you can see these are the people that dominate. Facebook is not that much. I don't know why. But this was more like one particular day where, but the Japanese customer tend to look at YouTube a lot more. Facebook traffic is a lot, but not huge. I think that's the only difference. So I think I spoke too much, so I should wrap up. My next area of interest, or what we foresee, what's coming next is, today we started to deploy 100 gig lambdas across the ocean. What is coming next? Is it going to be 400 gigs or 1 terabit? That's happening probably in the next 2-3 years, I believe. Next is, so when the capacity or the bandwidth port goes to 400 or 1 terabit, what is going to be the cost model? Do I still have to pay? So 100 gigs is probably 7 or 8 times 10 gig from cost perspective. So what will be a 400 gig? Is it going to be 3 times? If 3 times, it doesn't make sense because I have to renew all my infrastructure to meet that 400 gigs. So we need to come up with something else, like maybe some of the players, even though we are competitive, we may be competitors, maybe can share the capacity, for example. And we can do it on a per, usage basis. Or maybe something else that may come up. The other thing is more Asia, Southeast Asia to Europe that's started to grow, but we still foresee a lot of challenge, probably in the middle, like the Middle East. Or maybe we have to start thinking about how to transit to Africa, where there's potential traffic that's coming. The other thing is subsea from Indian Ocean is quite risky. CME 3, CME 4 gets cut, it won't come back for a month, usually. Maybe we need to find terrestrial cables, maybe more reliable cable system. And the other thing is new cables. So the telegeography person mentioned about new projects, but I think these are the things that's coming, but what else? I heard that there won't be any more new cables from North Asia down to Southeast Asia. The reason is because of the political uncertainty in the South China Sea area. So I don't know. I see more niche circuit, niche cables like Singapore, Indonesia to Sydney or Perth, for example, or from Sydney to New Zealand to US, for example. These may come, and these are coming, except I don't know about this one. Sorry. I don't know about Arctic fiber, but the rest I know are coming. So especially faster is like 2 months from now, that's coming up. But in any way, I think I was able to give you some food for thought about how to build your network and what will be the challenge when your traffic starts growing, when your customer base starts growing. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we have the third speaker, Mr. Douglas Wilson from Hurricane Electric. Please welcome him on stage.
Hello. I just took a job at Hurricane Electric the last couple of months, and I'm thankful to be invited to share what little information I do have. I've been in the internet for seems like a long time. When I first started, I saw the BGP table. It was around 35,000, and now we're roughly 600,000. I thought when I first IMUXed my first DS1 into 3 megabits, I thought it was the most awesome thing on the planet. Putting together, N by 10 gig lags don't seem to have the same thrill anymore, or N by 100s. Anyways, next slide, please. Been around for quite a while, as I said. I've been an operator, so I've been up all night. I've been in the discussions with the big boys, and it's been a lot of fun. So next slide. At Hurricane, we have been around for about 20 years. As I said, I am new. The differentiator was a person named Martin Levy, who I used to work for back at XO, and you probably all know him. He talked V6, and Hurricane, along with NTT, are the leaders for the V6. I thought the NTT talk was excellent. He shared tangible examples of real-world experiences of how the cost-benefit of risk and reward of making long-term decisions can be awesome, or it can be quite painful, but only to be seen in hindsight. Next slide, please. Hurricane Electric Network is actually quite large, considering it is owned by one individual. He's an exceptional individual, kind of an enigma. Not many people are like that. I mean, Martin Levy's like that and several others. But it seems to be that this fella has a propensity to read a lot of books, like one a day. And he is highly unusual in that sense. But he has a drive to want to eliminate illiteracy. And he thinks that by connecting the globe and all of the communities and building the communities, then we can help alleviate and eliminate war. And I think that that's an excellent, excellent point. Next slide. So Hurricane Electric has been growing by leaps and bounds, a substantial amount. Next slide. In the last year, have expanded considerably into smaller, more remote locations where a lot of cost benefit doesn't seem to be immediate returns. However, the point is that by extending, you do obtain some advantages, which would be first mover advantages, because people are dying to have you extend to them. As stated previously, many people want to look at their spreadsheets and say, oh, this is the next spot we need to go to. Everybody knows, I'd like to be in Singapore. I would like to be in Ashburn, Virginia. And of course, it's like going to, or wanting to get into a very good party. Once the party is happening, you know you want to be there, but you're standing outside the door trying to get in. There's not enough electricity, there's not enough space, and so anybody can make that decision. So it's actually who's going to be the first one to put forth the effort and the money and rent a hall and invite people and realize that when you come early to a party, it's not always most fun. You're waiting for people to show up. I think that this is an incredible meeting in the sense that the BKNIX, I think, does have an awful lot of opportunity, and it is great to be part of this, the beginnings. Although it's a one-year anniversary, I have a feeling that this exchange will take off exponentially. Next slide. So how do operators attract more members is, you can see Walt Wolney, who works for Hurricane, has done this talk, and he just gave this talk also. So you can see some of this stuff online. What I'd like to do is I'd like to share a few notes that I had in terms of, in lieu of how much people have shared, I feel compelled to want to help at least share my thoughts. And bear with me for being a little bit, because it's a little impromptu. But thanks to global transportation, communication, energy infrastructure, highways, airports, pipelines, electricity grids, and internet cables, and much, much more, we've determined that connectivity is destiny, from nations to nodes. Competitive connectivity is the arms race of the 21st century. Connectivity is how we make the most out of geography. The word infrastructure has been around for about 100 years, and it represents the physical capacity for global interaction. And we are in the early phases to facilitate surging flows of people, communities, goods, data, and capital. Only 25% of the world's trade between countries actually occurs between the borders, between them directly. Connectivity itself, along with demographics, capital markets, labor productivity, and technology, is a major source of momentum in the global economy. There is no better investment than connectivity. Gross fixed capital formation, which is roads, bridges, social infrastructure such as medical, education, it's considered investment because in the long run, it generates widespread benefits for society. Historically, the US infrastructure has invested, and for every $1 spent, has returned $2. The gap between supply and demand for infrastructure has never been greater. The world is headed for 8 billion people, and it's really been pretty much designed for about 3 billion people. Supply and demand lead to a supply chain world, and the foundations of better connectivity. Supply chains are not things, but they're actually streams of transactions. We see participants and transactions. Supply chains are the original World Wide Webs. They are the world's plumbing, wiring, and the pathways by which everyone and everything moves. The internet is the newest kind of infrastructure which supply chains are built. Supply and demand dynamics have always driven social organization. In a supply chain world, inefficiency is the enemy. Connectivity is the main cause of complexity. Conceptual dynamics, to borrow from physics, is flow and friction. Fundamental properties are to maximize flow. We want to allow parts of a system to connect to these other parts. This is the story of flow and friction on an expanding scale. It's the yin and the yang. But greater flows can amplify risks. Sensible friction, the friction of the future, is to control this flow. Controlling connections. It's this search for balance and the local needs versus global connectedness. And it's a strategic battleground. Sensible self-serving frictions to generate home country advantages are smart frictions and not globalization, worries. All things in moderation. I tell you this because I feel it's important to share this level. So, strategic importance used to be physical territory, but now it derives from leverage exercised through connective reach. In the standard gravity model, trade grows with the size of communities and inversely to the distance between them. On this, when the internet is fully wired and in place, I'm told that the marginal cost of delivering services falls to nearly zero. I don't know if I fully believe that. But between the digitally connected societies, the only distance is political and cultural. Today's cities are ranked by their influence in global networks, and countries are run by supply chains, communities that know no borders, and companies that now have more power than governments. All are evidence of a shift towards new kinds of pluralistic world systems. So for Hurricane, we're a privately held network, and we do want to see change. We'd like to see change within the whole world so that we can all live in harmony. I know it sounds like a Coke commercial, but the fact is that internetworking is the nervous system, and building nodes such as what the BKNIX is and potentially will become is of paramount. And so I would like to leave you with, we are changing the world, and hopefully it is for the better. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And okay, so now may I invite Associate Professor Surasak Sangwon-Pong, Director of BKNIX project under the THNIC Foundation, to present a gift of appreciation to all speakers in this session. Please. And may I invite the speakers also on stage? Anai Ribata, Kempe Fukuda, and Mr. Douglas Wilson. If you would like to see the slides of today's presentation, you can visit the BKNIX website at www.bknix.co.th. And now we'll have the second peering personal.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Panita. For this round, we have 4 members. Please line up on the side of stage first. Mr. Duke, from BKNIX, you please stay here. Second is Telecom Brunei. And the third is Facebook. And fourth is CAT. Okay, for your organization update, please send the slide to me or the event at bknic.co.th. So let's start the first one, BKNIX.
Well, I guess that doesn't work out so well. Anyways, we're autonomous AS 6939. We have over 100 locations. We do have an open peering policy. So again, that's a different philosophy from many saying, hey, you must be this tall, else you pay. So we believe that if we hook on and become friends and derive value, then we will be most likely to be considered partners in the future. Hurricane, like I said, is privately held. We are in many locations. We're about to light up South Africa, and that is an expensive circuit, let me tell you. We just lit up Brazil, and that too was an expensive circuit, but especially when it's your own money. So thanks so much.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Duke. Next, Telecom Brunei. Slide, please.
Okay, thank you, BKNIX, for this opportunity. Okay, just a short presentation on the introduction on Telbru, who we are. We are Telecom Brunei Berhad from Brunei Darussalam. Telbru is a leading service provider for fixed line, internet, broadband services, lease line, and data services. Okay, our AS number is 10094. We are NSB and eyeball. Our traffic volume 40 gig. We are selective. We're considered to be more open because we just started, and we look forward to appearing with you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. So the next, Mr. Messenger from Facebook.
Hey, I'm Matt from Facebook. We run a social network. Our AS is 32934. I listed the locations here that I believe are actually relevant for you. We're obviously in way more than that, but those are the closest one to Thailand. So we do peer on the I-axis in Malaysia, in Singapore, in Hong Kong. We do not yet peer on BKNIX, but this is something we're trying to fix. So watch this space for the future. We do privately peer in pretty much all those locations as well. So again, the closest to here would be Malaysia, CX1, and obviously the kind of usual suspects in Singapore, Hong Kong. And we do have a local caching solution, what we call FNA. So this is something we actually place into your network. Most of you guys know that. It's actually quite interesting, the presentation we saw earlier showing that we are one of the largest contributors to Thailand's international bandwidth. That's actually a pretty small portion. We serve the vast majority of our traffic actually inside of Thailand. So that traffic you see on the international links is actually a fraction of what we serve. If you are interested in peering with us, please contact me. Our peering DB entry is there. That literally lists everywhere we are, and this is something that's actually mandatory. We do not peer with somebody if you don't have a peering DB entry. And contact me. I'm here today and most of tomorrow. Let me know.
Yep. Thank you, Matt. Okay, the last one is CAT or CAT from Thailand.
Okay, hi. My name is Surasit Pakunangsit. I am from the Communication Authority of Thailand, or the company you guys know as CAT Telecom. CAT is one of the key companies to drive the digital economic internet infrastructure in Thailand. And we are providing the submarine cable and also local fiber cable, and we are also acting as an internet transit provider. We are currently at 12 locations around the world, and we have our AS number is 4651. If you guys want to connect with us, you can get more information on the peeringdb.com. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So, okay, I will end the peering personnel too. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, If you want a chance to be on stage like this, you have another chance, 2 more chances tomorrow. Please contact Kun Kittinan. And before we break for lunch, let me do some announcement first. Okay, so this afternoon, this room will be split into 2 rooms, function 1 and function 2. For those of you who are joining APNIC member gathering, it will start at 3 p.m. in function room 1. And the other room, function 2, will become the space for meet your peers. For meet your peers, I think you previously booked your meeting online, or you may have arranged meetings, face-to-face meeting. If you want to use the space, you can use the room for your meeting. Okay, and for this evening, we have peer and cocktail. It will start at 5:30 at the V bar located at the YTSB building, which is just in front of this hotel. The BKNIX staff will help you with that. And this reception is for those who pre-registered for the reception or hold the invitation card only. And for tomorrow, the registration will open at 8:30, and the first 2 sessions will start at 9 o'clock, which are the IXP benefits to the big data and cloud services, and the routing registry function automation with RPKI and RPLS, followed by the panel discussion, which will be conducted in Thai. The topic is policies related to the telecommunication transaction in Thailand and how to peer at the IXs. Okay, so I hope you will come back tomorrow and this afternoon. But how about lunch? The lunch will be at the La Vie restaurant at the 11th floor downstairs. BKNIX staff will help you find a way to the restaurant, and hope you enjoy your meal and networking. So thank you so much for coming.